Hey guys, it's Ethan from Zimmer Labs, and today's video is on a lightsaber I just finished, something I've been wanting to get to for a long time. I just haven't had a chance. This is a Vented Fury Hilt, which was a very small run done by Bombarta from one of the lightsaber forums. He did just empty, relatively unfinished hilts, mainly because they're really, aside from the Solos Hold Force Witch hilt, there really isn't a very good Ventress Ventress lightsaber hilt out there, or at least there wasn't. Now we're starting to get some. Watto's Junkyard obviously has done the Pariah V2, Pariah V3, but those are also still kind of up in the air. Hopefully not for too long, but at any rate. So really there hasn't been, many options for these, with the exception of getting an old Hasbro FX hilt and working with that, but those are kind of clunky and oversized. So this is just a cool hilt and one of my personal favorite lightsaber designs. I love this hilt. I'm not sure why. I think it's kind of reminds me of a motorcycle handlebar, maybe, just in the aesthetic of it overall. And it's a lightsaber hilt design that I personally really love. So I obviously jumped on the opportunity to grab a couple of these when the run was announced, but it's taken probably a year or so for me to actually get around to finishing this. It came out really well, so I'm super happy about that, but this was a ton of work, let me say that. To begin with, this is what we got when we bought them. It was an extra $130, I think, to have Bombarda actually do the polishing, but it was just a rough polishing. It wasn't polishing to get it to look anything like this. But this one here, this hilt, obviously, was one that I ended up buying off another guy who did not pay the extra to get it polished. So this is essentially what I was working with to begin with when building this. Just so you guys have an idea of the amount of work that went into getting it there. And basically, it's just a two-piece. It's a hollow bent tube and then a pommel. That's it. And obviously very, very rough, unfinished, just metal, cast iron, I think. I'm not exactly sure. But at the end of the day, if you've got the time, the energy to put the work in, it really does shine up and into something that's really nice. So a little side by side here for you guys, just so you can see differences. Most obvious, if you look down at the pommel, are the covertec knob down here, and then the attachment bolt on the other side. These, to me, those are two parts that really make this hilt. As it came, there were just these two little round, kind of decorative greebles there, and they barely stand out, And to me, the reason this hilt, one of the reasons I love it so much, is because it's got these two clunking, huge, round, offsetting, kind of jarring, elaborate, cylinders hanging out down the bottom. And so I wasn't okay with just having these little guys. I wanted to really kind of maximize them. Initially, my intention was to put a recharge port in the middle of the covertec knob, but the speaker has to go in there, and really there's the only one place for the speaker is where that is, so the recharge port had to go elsewhere. The other side is just a bolt, basically decorative bolt, but if you were to join two of these together to make a saber staff, then that bolt could theoretically become functional in order to help attach them. But at any rate, that's what's going on. The next major change, as you can see up top, is the little red decorative greeble. That just didn't exist on the hilt as Bombarded designed it, so it's something I had to make myself and add to the hilt. That was pretty simple, pretty straightforward, just piece of aluminum cut and polished and then painted to match, and then mounted to the hilt with a couple of steel pins. The next big change is the decorative metal stripe here, I guess you could call it. I'm pretty sure that the idea, as far as the person who actually invented and designed this hilt originally, you know, for Lucasfilm or for whoever it was that designed it, had designed it with the intention of it being a metal bar that was holding whatever these little different sections are in place, kind of a metal strap. So that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to make real metal straps, and so what I did was I just sanded off and removed that metal stripe there that was just decorative, and put in functional steel metal strapping that actually acts to hold the leather bands in place. Obviously, it's not the only thing holding them in place, but those are actually separate pieces now, and they're really good for helping with the grip too. It gives you a little something extra to grab onto. But another nice just little touch as far as detail goes to make this really pop and make it a really good looking saber. Obviously the next big change, big addition, is the leather wraps. As you guys can see from the unfinished one, there are just alternating sections of low and high areas of the hilt. I don't think I've ever seen anyone else do a leather wrap on this, but the Hasbro version of it, the FX version, had fake leather wraps here that were rubber. And everybody else's I've seen, these sections are just black, probably painted or powder coated. So, you know, as far as I can tell, I'm pretty sure that it was intended for these sections to be leather, you know, kind of as a grip, like a handlebar, you know, something to ride on a motorcycle, whatever, you know, you can kind of expect these to be leather. So I wanted to do it because it looks good, it gives it a nice, you know, a nice polished finish, and obviously a lot more premium look. So that's the next main change that I made to the hilt to really kind of make it pop. The only area of the hilt that I haven't really done anything with, and that I'm not super happy with, to be honest, but I still haven't decided how to handle it yet, is this top section here, which has some decorative cross hatches. Basically, I just polished the stripes and then painted the in-between areas with the gloss black to kind of offset and make it pop. But, you know, this is what it looks like before. Not really a lot you can do with it, but something. It looks better that way. As far as functionally, we've got two very, very small hidden brass buttons here. Obviously power and then auxiliary. Set screw here for the blade plug and the blade. And set screw here to lock the pommel in place. Then there is an additional set screw underneath, inside the pommel, actually, yeah, right here to lock the chassis in place, but it's, yeah, you guys can probably just barely see it. A little tiny micro set screw, which locks the chassis in place from sliding in. As you can see, obviously the speaker's right here on the end. It's a 25mm speaker, biggest I could squeeze in there without major overhaul to the pommel. And I didn't want to do a lot of work to it because it's really kind of an awkward pommel inside. And then there is some stainless steel vented mesh down at the bottom to kind of decorate up the end. This is what the end looks like originally. This is the inside. Not much room to work with because this bottom section here is really solid metal all the way through to about there. So to get a speaker in there, you really, if you want to get bigger than 25mm, you're really going to have to get in there and cut a lot of that out. And it's just, it didn't seem to me to be really worth doing to get a bigger speaker in there, considering you can't get much bigger anyhow. So, but at any rate, so that's the overall design of the hilt functionality. And then this is just a custom turbine / razor blade style blade plug I made for it. Just because I thought it would look good. Nothing crazy there. Very, very basic, simple, non-illuminated blade plug. And then there is a metal cylinder that came with the hilt. As you can see, it's not included in this one, but that cylinder is mounted inside of here to kind of finish off this area. It's also a heat sink and a LED holder if you're going to go with the in-hilt LED, but so that's why this looks the way it does. But as you can see in there, instead I used that as a mount for the blade connector. And we might as well fire it up. You guys can see how it works. I think the thing I am most happy with about this guy, obviously besides just the overall looks of it, is the functionality. So it's really a challenging lightsaber to build, and not to have it just be a shelf queen, but you know, to be something that genuinely works and works well and isn't clunky and aggravating. To do that, I had to begin by making the speaker removable. So the speaker pops right out and it mounts and connects with 2 header pins, very much like the Tusken Slayer from Watto's Junkyard. Has the same similar idea going on down here. It's a chassis piece with a speaker that clips on and mounts to the chassis using the same method, the 2 header pins. So I kind of stole that idea from that. When you remove the speaker, you can see that you then have access to USB, SD card, and recharge port down here. And then these 2 small metal circles are the speaker connectors. And they made up with these 2 header pins here. So you just line that up, stick it in, boom, Bob's your uncle. To access the SD card, need some tweezers and just pull it out. Simple as that. And then this guy is a custom kill key that I made for this. It had to be custom because it's a very little room to work with on this guy. This chassis has only so much space to work with, and there's only this one surface that you have access to, because you can't, this hilt doesn't open at all and you can't really slide this out. So the chassis has to have everything right on the end. So I made this the recharge port and also the main switch by doing this custom kill key, which is a twist to activate. So all you have to do is just reach in, twist it around till the little yellow dot is facing left, and she's on. Go ahead and pop the speaker back on. There are boot sounds, but you don't hear them because when the saber boots up, the speaker isn't attached yet. So the boot sounds are kind of defeated, unless you're really fast. If you're fast, then you will hear the boot sounds, but obviously I wasn't. So you just pop the speaker back on, pop the pommel back on, tighten her down. It's a good looking blade plug. I really like that. Alright, and all the sound fonts on here are new, or at least 99% of them are new. So a shout out to Jesse Kirkbride and Brandon Robbins, who did, I think, the majority of the sound fonts on here. And the ones that are on here that they didn't do are kind of homemade sound fonts that I made myself using different hodgepodges, different amalgamations of sound fonts that I already have that I really like, that are Ventress-like, very similar to her, that I added my own swing files into my own blaster files to kind of create my own custom sound font, because there are not a lot of Asajj Ventress sound fonts, and you don't want to put a graphic sound font on this lightsaber. You want it to sound the way it's supposed to sound, because this has got a really unique sound to it. So, like I said, Jesse Kirkbride and Brandon Robbins did a number of fonts that actually were pretty good and applicable and fit pretty well on this guy. So, quick shout out to those guys for really good work. Let us put the blade on, and we'll run through the blade so you guys can see how she works. This is a super tight fit, so as you can see, the base of the blade had to be sanded down to get it to fit, and it's still really snug, but that's okay. Better to have a snug blade than a loose blade. Just slide it in, lock it down with that set screw, and boom. Actually, love the new smooth swing and accent swing effects. They're really just terrific. Let me pull up the list right here real quick just so I know what sound fonts are what. So that first blade has Savage sound font. Next blade up is red again with the Staple Sword sound font. And this one is one I really like because the sound is pretty Ventress-like. Next up, we've got one of my homemade fonts, which is made from a bunch of different stuff and a base font that was actually a Asajj Ventress. Next one is another homemade. And as you can tell, it's definitely got a really good swing to it. That is the sound of the speaker coming loose, so I guess it's not quite finished. That's a good example of why this is a tricky build, because everything has to be lined up just right, and there's really very little room for error or wiggle room in this guy. and because of the shape, obviously, of the hilt, getting everything to come together is pretty tough. But when you do get it there, it's very much worth it. Alright, next up is the Wraith sound font. I really like this guy. Why is this coming loose again? Oh, it's not. It's just being pushed by the hilt. Alright, so I just have to make sure to adjust the hilt here so that it's not pushing on the speaker. Okay, good. And then next up, we've got Shockwave. It's got a really nice low purr and a kind of almost like a silencer effect for the swing itself. Got like a muffled slash throaty swing sound. Some really great blaster effects too. Love those. Very, very unique. It's not something, you don't hear anything like that in other fonts. I really enjoy those. Next up is Lightsaber. Another really good font for being sithish and Ventress-ish. Kind of hard to hear the swing effect. It doesn't stand out as well as other fonts do, but it really works. It really does sound good in person. Plus, I love the power off sound. Love that. I don't know why. It's just robotic and cool. I like it. Next up, this is... Actually, this is on Lightsaber. I'm sorry, the last one was... I've been one off, but... This is a bright yellow with blue effect. Kind of a contrast blade. And this has got a really good throaty, raspy swing sound effect to it, and it's really obvious. Love that. It's a great sound font. This next one up is a Darth Maul font, modified by yours truly. And then this is the Menace sound font, which is also Darth Maul. Also heavily modified as far as the swing effects go. I wanted to get the smooth swing effect sound to really stand out on this. This is the Emperor sound font. Once again, pretty heavily modified as far as the swings go. And this is a chartreuse colored blade. Really cool color in person. It's like it's like a sick green, neon sickness green color is the best thing I can think to describe it. And it's pretty gnarly with the purple drag tip. And now we're going to cycle back through the sound fonts again. I think that's mostly all of them. Actually, this is Shockwave. I think when I said it was Shockwave earlier, I was wrong. This too has really terrific blaster effects. This is a red electricity blade. Those same excellent blaster sound again. Old school red Tron color cycle blade with updated effects. It's the yellow to red turbine blade. And the last one is the Eye of Sauron blade. No, I lied, this is the fire blade. It's got a really good localized lockup effect.